It's the early morning of July 16th, 1945. The New Mexico desert is silent, dark, and strangely cold. A storm is rolling in from the east, lightning flickers behind the mountains, and wind sweeps across the empty plains. But hidden out here, in this isolated stretch of land called Jornada del Muerto, the journey of the dead man, hundreds of scientists, soldiers, and engineers stand waiting for a moment that will change the world forever. It is 5 a.m. They have been working toward this for 3 years. 3 years of secrecy, pressure, exhaustion, and fear. 3 years under the shadow of one terrifying possibility, that Nazi Germany might develop the most destructive weapon in history before they could. Now, after endless calculations, failed detonations, late-night experiments, and a level of stress that drove some men to breakdowns, America is minutes away from finding out if their atomic bomb, the first of its kind, actually works. The operation has a name, Trinity, and what is about to happen will determine not only the fate of World War II, but the entire future of warfare, politics, and global power. At the heart of this moment stands J. Robert Oppenheimer, the scientific director of the Manhattan Project. Thin, sharp-eyed, exhausted, a man who looks like he hasn't slept in days because he hasn't. He pulls on a cigarette, stares out toward the steel tower holding a small, grapefruit-sized sphere of plutonium called the Gadget, and wonders if he is about to witness the world's first sun, or a complete failure that will embarrass him and the entire American scientific community. Others worry about something far worse. Some fear that when the bomb detonates, it might ignite the atmosphere, setting off a chain reaction that could burn the oxygen and destroy the world. The probability was considered almost zero, but not zero. The fact that anyone had to calculate those odds tells you everything about how new, how unstable, and how unknown this technology truly was. But war leaves no time for hesitation. By July 1945, Germany had already surrendered. Hitler was dead, but Japan was still fighting, fiercely. American commanders expected millions of casualties if the United States had to invade the Japanese mainland. The bomb, if it worked, promised a brutal mercy, a way to force surrender without a land invasion. That is why President Truman waited anxiously for the results. That is why General Leslie Groves, the hard-edged military head of the Manhattan Project, pushed his men relentlessly, demanding perfection. And that is why Oppenheimer now stands in the desert with trembling hands, watching the countdown begin. As the first hint of dawn pushes across the sky, a voice crackles through the loudspeakers. All stations, this is the countdown. T-2 minutes. Men dive behind bunkers, trucks, and sandbags. Some crouch behind welding glasses. Others put their backs to the test site and bury their faces in their arms. Some shake uncontrollably. Some pray. Some laugh nervously, unable to process the enormity of what they're witnessing. Oppenheimer stands quietly beside a group of scientists. Enrico Fermi, the Italian physicist who escaped fascist Europe, holds small strips of paper in his hands, prepared to drop them to measure the blast wave. Edward Teller, who has been pushing for an even bigger bomb, the hydrogen bomb, smears suntan lotion across his face and hands, terrified of radiation. Richard Feynman refuses protective goggles. Instead, he climbs into a truck and prepares to watch the blast through the truck window using the natural filter of tinted glass. Each man here knows the truth. If this bomb ignites properly, the world will never be the same again. A voice echoes through loudspeakers, T-30 seconds. The desert goes silent. No wind, no birds. Just tension so thick it feels like gravity is pulling everything downward. Oppenheimer stares at the horizon. He feels a knot in his stomach. He remembers the letters from scientists begging him to stop the project. He remembers the calculation about the atmosphere possibly igniting. He remembers the weight of responsibility placed on his shoulders by the government, by history, and by fate itself. And now, with 30 seconds left, he feels something he hasn't felt since the project began: fear. At 5:29 a.m., the desert is swallowed by light. Not light like a sunrise, not light like lightning, but a white, blinding, violent light that seems to rip reality apart. Men miles away feel heat slam against their faces, as if they're staring into a furnace. The dark desert turns brighter than noon. Shadows stretch across the sand. Mushrooming flames rise in a perfect sphere, orange, red, purple, swirling together like a living creature. The steel tower holding the bomb evaporates instantly. Rocks turn to liquid glass. Sand melts. The shockwave tears across the ground, flattening everything in its path. Some scientists gasp. Others shout in disbelief. General Groves stares with wide eyes. The man who pushed, demanded, and bullied everyone to finish this project now realizes what they've created. But Oppenheimer doesn't shout. He doesn't move. He simply watches the inferno rising into the sky and feels something inside him break. In later years, he said that one sentence came into his mind, an ancient Hindu scripture from the Bhagavad Gita: "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Around him, others react with a mixture of awe and horror. Fermi drops his paper strips and watches them flutter in the shockwave. Teller stares at the blast with a strange excitement, already thinking of the next bomb, the next level of destruction. Feynman, from inside his truck, watches the tower vanish in a flash and knows instantly that physics has crossed a line it can never step back over. For a moment, no one speaks. They simply stare at the enormous boiling column of fire rising into the sky, expanding into a mushroom cloud that reaches 7 miles high. Some cheer because the bomb worked. Some cry because of what it means. Some feel sick. General Groves breaks the silence. He turns to his officers and says, "The war is ours now." But Oppenheimer sees something else, something darker. He knows that Hiroshima and Nagasaki may be next. He knows that the world's future has changed in 6 milliseconds. He knows that no nation will ever again feel secure unless they hold this kind of power. And perhaps worst of all, he knows that he cannot control what happens next. He helped create something too big, too powerful, too destructive for any one man or any one government to ever fully control. Back at the test bunkers, the shockwave hits. It slams windows, shakes buildings, knocks men backward. Dust fills the air. Animals miles away run in terror. People feel the ground shake beneath their feet like an earthquake. One soldier describes it later. It felt like the sky cracked open and fire poured out. Once the noise fades and the cloud begins to rise into the upper atmosphere, the scientists begin walking out of their bunkers. They step into the desert, staring at the new crater, a glowing bowl of blackened glass, molten in the center. Some scoop up pieces of the radioactive glass, later named trinitite, unaware of how dangerous it is. Others simply stare into the crater, speechless. They had theorized this moment for years. Now they have seen it. At the command post, a message is sent to President Truman. Results satisfactory. The understatement of the century. Truman, sitting at the Potsdam Conference in Germany, gets the message and immediately understands. The United States now has the most powerful weapon in human history. The war can be ended on America's terms. The geopolitical order of the world has just been rewritten, but the men in the desert feel something different. Some feel pride, some feel relief, some feel dread. Only a few understand the full weight of what has happened. That evening, Oppenheimer returns to his quarters. He pours himself a drink, sits down, and stares at the wall for a long time. He knows history has changed, not because America won a military victory, but because humanity itself has stepped into a new age, a nuclear age, an age where a single bomb can destroy a city, an age where future wars might not last years, but minutes, an age where the survival of nations, even civilization itself, hangs on fragile diplomacy, rational leaders, and luck. The Trinity test was not just the moment America realized it had a nuclear weapon. It was the moment humanity realized it had built something capable of ending itself. In the weeks that followed, the bomb would be dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Japan would surrender. World War II would end. But a new conflict, the Cold War, would begin, and nations across the world would race to build their own nuclear arsenals. All of it, the fear, the power, the tension, the possibility of destruction, began right there at 5:29 a.m. in the New Mexico desert. A flash of light brighter than the sun. A blast that shook the world. A moment when humanity crossed an invisible line and could never go back. Because on that quiet morning, in a remote stretch of American desert, the United States didn't just build a bomb. It entered a new era, one defined by unimaginable power and the terrifying responsibility that comes with it.